now inquiring into our practices that we have been looking at, what this is all driven by is what our baseline used to be and what we would like our baseline to become. So our baseline used to be that we would have our Google sites, which would have resources in these sites for our students to be able to learn, as well as having our embedded calendars, NCEA information, that sort of thing. So what we're now looking at is raising that baseline for the beginning of next year to include these different variables here. So we want to look at, and these relate to the previous slide that we were looking at. So monitoring ongoing student progress in terms of formative feedback consistently across all subject areas for all students and for all parents on a week-by-week basis. Looking at students being able to self-monitor, rewindable learning. I'll go into it a little bit more, just kind of reflection, as what's already been said, the students that are coming through from our feeder schools are already blogging, they already know how to reflect on their learning, and so we need to continue that process. Some of that's happening already. Showcasing, visual showcasing of work, which we're going to be looking at in terms of year level and subject e-portfolios. Clear learning outcomes for the students, so that students know exactly what it is that they're supposed to be doing, any lesson that they're in, any day of the week, from one week to the next, etc. The use of collaborative learning tools, which a lot of us are using already, whether they be in workspaces, year level, Google Plus communities, etc. But most importantly, that this is consistent across all of our different subject areas, so that no matter what class the student walks into, they're getting the same access to learning. When I'm talking about access to learning, I'm talking about access to learning resources. As what's been said, everything's open source. Also talking about access to regular progress or formative feedback, not just our summative feedback. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of access to learning. Before I get into these three links here, what I'll just do is I'll give you this, play this video. So this is just an example of best practice that happened with our Year 8 Glenbrae students that were in last Friday. So it was a bit of freestyling, it was a bit of on-the-spot sort of an opportunity just to capture what some of the students are doing in terms of accessing visible teaching and learning in Digitech. That's Glenbrae Year 8.
These are our next year.
So I guess students are feeding it.
Okay, and cool. And what school are you here from?
Glenbrae.
Excellent. So you're here from Glenbrae. You come here on Fridays. And what class are you on at the moment?
Room 7.
What subject are you doing right now?
Technology.
You're doing technology? You're doing ICT. Fantastic. So when you come to ICT, when you come to Digitech, how do you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing?
We go on the Tamaki site.
Yes.
And then we go on the Digitech and we go on the Year 8 calendar.
Okay. Would you be able to walk us through that process?
Yes.
To show us, what does that look like?
So now we're to Tamaki College site. And now we go to curriculum. And then learn areas. And then we go on technology. And then you press Digitech where it says Miss Anderson's name. And then click on year 8 calendar.
Okay, so when you're in Digitech, that is the subject site. And so you're going into the calendar. And why are you going into the calendar?
To get our work.
To get your work. Okay. To get your work or
To find out what we're doing.
to find out what you're doing. Fantastic. Oh, can you show us what that looks like?
So on Friday, 18th, believe it or not, and we just press on this 850 and we go to design ideas. Design the ideas of design brief, and there's a semester 3 for year 8, and it shows you what we're learning. And the green part is when we finish.
We have achieved and achieved.
And when you look up here, there's design brief where we had to complete our work.
Okay. Okay, so if we just step back a moment, if you can take us please back to the calendar. Right, okay, so for today, we can see that today is yellow. That's today's date. If you click on that link again, yeah. So you look at it like that, yeah, that's the one. We go into more details and that brings up, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Bring up.
Okay, so when you were in one of the learning activities before, which link is that? Take us to the link that you were talking about.
Design brief.
Okay, fantastic. Click on that. Okay, great. So that's telling you what it is that you need to do, hey?
Yes.
Awesome. Now you were in this big grid before. You were in this big grid. Before we go back to that grid, can you get that grid there? Can you please go back to the calendar post?
From with
Yep, that's the one. Yep, go back into there. And maybe go back into more details. Right. Okay, so that's also available in here. So the link to that task is also available in here. So if you go, yep, go down. This is one there. Yep.
Semester 3.
you can remove it, but and today's date is week 7.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so let's just go through that again. So we're talking about, so the greens, what do the greens mean?
That was
The greens mean that we have achieved our task, and plum. The orange means that we still have to complete our work.
Cool. And what about the red?
all red is when we haven't completed our work.
Okay,
So
cool.
just
So I see down the bottom here that we're looking at the 11th of November, and what date does it say on my watch?
The 18th.
Cool. So how about we flick through to, click on there. Okay. Right, so that's what we're looking at here. So that should show an update of where we're at. Does that look accurate to you girls in terms of where you are at with your work?
yes.
Okay.
As you can see, 4C has done a lot.
Well done.
Was green.
Well done. Well done. That's excellent. Okay. So, do you find this useful?
Yes.
Yeah. And why is it useful?
Because it helps us to
Like we can see
like
what we're doing.
You can see what you're doing. Yeah. You can see what you're doing, and why is that important to you?
To know
what task we need to finish.
That's great. That's awesome. Well done, girls.
So what that essentially is a lot of those components are what I'm about to present to you in the visual teaching and learning framework that we've been looking for together. Yep, so if you can go into that presentation. It may actually be easier for you to track this on your devices. so I'm going to skim through quite a bit of it in order for us to keep moving. You should be able to comment on different parts of the presentation, so feel free, if you have questions before we get to the end, feel free to throw those comments onto different parts of the presentation, or even if you want to flick me an email separately because you're not sure about something. I just want to keep the flow going. I'm just conscious that there is a lot to cover, so we do want to know what your feedback is, but I just want to keep the flow going. So just with this front here, I'm just looking at what visual teaching and learning is for the different stakeholders being students, teachers and parents, because next level from where we are at the moment, we know that our sites and our learning resources are open source. We want our parents and the community to also be able to access not just the learning, but the formative feedback week by week basis for their child or their children for each of their subjects. So there's where we're looking at going. What this framework looks like at the moment, it's got the 10 different components. Across the school, as what Russell's already said, we already know that there are really awesome pockets of excellence, and we want to keep fostering that amongst the staff. When we're looking at these different 10 components within this framework, we're not saying that whatever it is that you're doing currently is now invalid. What we want to do is try and marry it all together. The framework is going to just create a guide for us collectively to be able to raise our baseline from just creating sites to integrating all these different variables that impact on the students' learning through Learn, Create, Share. When we're looking at it from left to right, we're looking at Share, Create, Learn. That's typical Hinaro, going straight to the end and trying to unravel things backwards. So, yeah, that's just how that is. Within this, you should, fingers crossed, be able to access these different links, which will take you to different parts of the slides, but I'll keep going. Okay, so what is this? As I've said before, it's various learning components or learning tools based around Learn, Create, Share, pedagogical practices and models of learning. For the next 10 slides, they'll all be based like this. So it's talking about what is the purpose of each of these different separate components. Some of these you'll see in the centre have examples of videos, best practice videos from the students. So Google Plus Communities, what are we looking at? The purpose and benefits of student Google Plus Communities or subject blogs is that students can share and collaborate on ideas. So when we're looking at current practice on the left, you'll notice that there will be a little asterisk or star next to a lot of those things. So we know that it's been used by some staff. What we don't know is which staff are currently using those things. What we want to look at in terms of future focus is that those are the different elements we want for all staff to be using or incorporating, into their subject Google Plus Communities or subject blogs. So we want them, they have to be public, they've got to be open source, and different categories that we've included there. Student blogs, as what's already been mentioned, and we know this already, is that students are coming through from our feeder schools already blogging and already using their student blogs, and they're using them to share ideas and reflect, which helps their learning to grow and develop. Current practice, we know that some people are doing some of the things there, and we're wanting to look at those different variables on the right. I'm going to really speed that down. Something that some staff have been doing is year-level e-portfolios. So just the whole guts around this is that this would essentially be a landing pad of various different subject e-portfolios which link into this landing pad, which is like a visual representation of everything that the student is doing, basically in all of their subjects. The potential of this is unlimited. something that I think that will resonate with all of us is the conversations that we have with parents. So whether that be on a tutor-teacher level, whether it be subject teachers, whether it be conferences, whether or not, whatever the meeting is that visual representations of the students' work can be communicated to parents, or even beyond that. If you can imagine, when the kids are hitting year 12, year 13, that they have these e-portfolios that they could potentially be using for applying for scholarships, applying to get into tertiary institutes, applying for jobs. So the potential is limitless, basically. That's looking at the e-portfolio at subject level, which would feed into that year level portfolio. Workspaces, I'll be completely honest about this, I'm not an expert in workspaces. So, but that's where there are definitely experts on our staff who can help us with this. So a bit of light on the ground on there, but it's definitely one of the variables or one of the components we want to be considering.
I think the good thing is that whatever we're trying to achieve here, that aspect of it can be embedded as well. It's not going to be changing completely and stop doing it. It's how can you best use it within the framework that we're talking about.
So solo-focused learning activities. So although it's in a different format, this is what the example of the Year 8 students, when they were going into the calendar, they were hitting into a hyperlink that was directing them to instructions. And they were set up, when I say they're set up as solo focused, so we're using different terminology, different verbs out of our solo taxonomy posters that are around the classrooms. And that's directing their learning, so asking them to create something, identify, etc., etc. Subject rule side, well, we're all looking, we're already using these already. Subject Google Calendars, or a lot of us are using the subject Google Calendars. Next step for us is to be looking at the hyperlinked learning activities within different events that students access. So this is one example that enables rewindable learning to kick in. That same Year 8 class that I had on Friday, one of the students two of them weren't there in the previous week. I was immersed trying to get the ones who were there onto the next task. When I finished with them, the two that were absent in the previous week said, oh yeah, we're ready for you to mark our work. And I said, okay. So how did that happen? What they'd done was that they'd gone into the previous calendar post, clicked on the link, knew what was supposed to be covered because they knew they hadn't done it based on the grid system, on that traffic light system, and they knew that they could go into our year level blog to access examples that their classmates had posted. They used that not to copy their work, but to guide them. So the calendar with the hyperlinks in it and the year level subject blog were examples of rewindable learning for the students to be able to get up to scratch with their work. You just imagine how often are our kids away and they say, oh, we're here on Tuesday. It's like, oh, okay. But you know, if the work is there, they can still access the work either from home or within the classroom to be able to know what it is that you're supposed to do.
And I also add that when you put a calendar on your website, the kids will copy that onto their personal calendar. And what happens is if you've got 5 subjects, 5 due dates, assessment dates, learning, whatever it is, topics, etc., will be copied onto that one calendar for them. So for example, if Paul is discussing a trip or a time for an interview, a kid would be able to look at that calendar and work out when would be a good time to actually do that. So we're hoping it'll centralize it for that kid as well. Because at the moment we don't know who's doing what when, and I don't think some kids have an overall idea of what their day looks like. And yet we're expecting them to self-manage, but we haven't helped them develop that skill to self-manage. Most of our kids think because I wasn't here on Tuesday never happened, and I just keep going with life. But actually, you know, they need to complete that. So I'm hoping that when we reflect in 6 months' time, we'll see an impact, because I know I use my calendars a hell of a lot, and I rely on my calendar because there's so much going on. But I guess we can impart that same skill to our kids because they are educable.
And keeping that in mind too, like when we think of the students, you think of it from the point of view of the student, we're expecting the student to walk into period 1, period 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're expecting them every time they walk into our class, boom, to be switched on. That's the nature of how things work in most secondary schools. So this is a way that strips back barriers for the students to be able to learn and get access to their learning fast, so that we could get the learning underway, get them learning. Maximise our time providing the students with feedback and feed forward, as opposed to spending huge chunks of time just telling the kids what they're supposed to be doing. Of course, we've got to be responsible for that as well ourselves, and that the information has to be clear, or that, you know, we still have to teach. This is not designed, this whole framework is not designed for the students to teach themselves. We're still the teachers, sometimes we're the learners, but yeah, it's supposed to help that whole learning process by taking away as many barriers to learning as possible. Okay, so class project lists, that's what the students were talking about in terms of the traffic light system, where they know what their progress is for whatever project they're working on, based on green, orange and red. That's something that's monitored by the teacher or by myself, that the students are able to view and their parents are able to view. In the past, when they've been live on my Google site, I've just had their first names in, but as we know, some of our students have really uniquely beautiful names like Afi Mai Afi Atu, so it's not very good in terms of privacy. So what we're looking at doing is using their KMAR numbers. There's going to be a bit of shift around that about how we ensure that the students know what their KMAR number is, etc. But, you know, this is about keeping the information open source for us, for the students and for the parents. The flip of this, in terms of the monitoring, the student self-monitoring, is that they have checklists. A lot of us use this in our classes anyway. This is an interactive checklist whereby students will also be helped by hyperlinking their work, finished work, into their checklist. They check it off. That doesn't mean that they've achieved stuff. Yes, they might be saying that things are checked off. We still have to go in and say, yeah, actually that's correct, it's done. Yes, it's done, please blog it, please share it on Google+, etc. But then that's our, you know, empowering the learner, I suppose, to be part of their progress as well. So why? As we talked about before, it's this idea of this shared vision around learning and the consistency of learning and access to learning from one class to the next. Entwined with shifting thinking around effective pedagogy, and what also enables a means of collaboration between all the different stakeholders, students, parents, and ourselves as teachers. I'll just keep going. Part of the how. Actually, I'll do a bit of freestyle here. So, part of our how is that one of those links that's on this presentation, the Vital Toolkit, is going to give you a starter kit of things that you can look at for each of these 10 components. As Russell said, we are going to be looking at what does the professional development look like for 2017 beyond to support people to be able to do this, what professional development is already available, what templates are available, etc. And yeah, I think I might leave that at that actually. And I've been talking heaps. Oh my gosh, I'll try and hurry up. Sorry guys. Are there any questions at the moment? That's something pops into your head, feel free to email or comment something out. Hope it's okay. So this thing here is, and a lot of you have asked, oh, Nina, right, 27 members so far. What this is it's a public Google Plus community for visual teaching and learning. So what it is that we're using this as a hub for us to be able to collaborate. It'll either be happening in our departments, curriculum meetings, pastoral, what have you, about trying to share examples of best practice. And so that's going to be there as a resource for us to look at using. And a lot of you have already joined on to that already, so that's really good to see.
We'd like a few more members of that community. There's 27 currently, and we've got 50 teaching staff.
Good
So
start.
please don't be afraid to join up. And if you don't want to comment, you could always hit the +1 just to acknowledge that actually you either agree or don't hit it if you disagree with something that's posted. That's fine. We can take critical criticism from critical friends.
This thing here is the third link, which is this little toolkit that I was saying, a vital starter toolkit. So it's got different components of that framework in it. This is to get people started. Thank you. In this section here where it says functional attributes, these are the different attributes that we would expect to see in the different components that enables it to work. Now honestly, there are already examples of things that are happening that are similar to this around the school. So what we don't want people to do is think that if you've got something similar, or something that already hits a lot of these attributes, that you're supposed to can that and make it look like the example. That's not the point of it. The point of it is that we're looking for consistency, but consistency could be that you're just looking at what you already have. Does anything need to change to meet these different attributes? So the attributes contribute to the idea that consistency is happening with the use of those different learning tools from one classroom to the next. Because the last thing we want to do is stunt creativity or stunt what examples of existing best practice. That's not the point of this. The point of it is to raise the baseline collectively and consistently across the school, but not by saying that what you've been doing already is irrelevant now. That's not the point. Under there you will see some links to some resources for people that might want to go and have a look, go and have a play, go and have a go, or try to unpick whatever it is that that different component is about. As well as some access to some of the how-to resources that already exist. A lot of them are in the how-to site that Karen set up for us a few years ago, still relevant, absolutely still relevant. Some of them are new resources that some other staff are already dropping in there too. What would be really, really awesome is that we start seeing some more really cool examples of best practice that are happening around the school. Because sometimes we just don't know that these things are happening. And sometimes they're really, really cool ideas. So yeah, I think that might be Are there any questions? No questions here? Everything's alright?